Hi, welcome back everyone. This is Fire
And
Scratch.
this is Pocket Dinosaur.
So we're going to teach you today, most importantly, a bunch of other things, is how to go between rooms, entering and exiting, and transferring a player.
As well as actually making additional rooms.
Yes, but first we'll talk a little bit more about the tile sets of why A, B, and C, and R are down there, what they mean.
So first we're going to start with A. A is your basic tile sets. These can be anything that's going to be your ground, your floor, your ceiling, or your staircases. We covered this a little bit in the previous episodes. We'll let you play around with them and figure out what you can pass over and what you can't. However, there's additional tile sets. There's B and C. Now these are additional tiles that are primarily used as background. Example here being the stalactite here. Additionally, you also have, in the case of our horror-themed game, if you're having an indoor level, you might have something like curtains.
And as you see, you can do two tile select of like a length of it. You can do like the top part only or the bottom part only if you're hiding behind something, or if you want to just make it look glitchy or weird, you can do that in any way, shape, or form, or vice versa for anything that has more than one square inch tile.
Now, the interesting thing about A and B, about B and C, is that you can actually layer multiple sections in some cases. Example here is I have this tattered brown one, which I'm going to layer over top of the red one, creating a creepy effect.
Yes, you can only do this, however, for RPG Maker. It's very particular in that way that and the original object are as much as you can put on top of one another. So, say if you want to put that brown ugly curtain on the red one, and you want to put a blood splatter on it, one of them has to disappear because just at maximum with RPG Maker, two can be on each other at a time, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can't have all three of these all at once. It's just not going to work that
And
way.
as you see, the ugly brown full length is covering the red, and now it's completely gone, which means you have to start over. Because if you put a red curtain over top of that, it'll cover that one because that one's in order. It's a mess. It can be messy sometimes.
An important thing to note here is that when you pick something like an empty tile, like this one right here, and you go over top of these ones, it'll delete them, but it will not delete the background ones, which is the tile A. If you go to tile A and change things, like let's say you go down to the empty space here, it'll create a big hole. They will not directly affect each other the way that they would on with one another. A affects A, and B and C affect B and C.
It helps so you don't keep deleting everything, having holes and going back and forth and back and forth. It just helps a lot more.
Now, let's talk about creating a new map. First thing you want to do is you want to decide whether or not you want to have a hierarchy coming from your general game or from your map.
Now, the hierarchy, what that means in speaking terms, is what order the rooms and tile sets are formulated. So you see, tutorial 2 is the first one, that's the entire game itself. The map is one of the levels fabricated from that game. And so hierarchy means the order of which they come in or which you want them to be in. It doesn't necessarily affect the gameplay. It just keeps everything tidy. If you have like 100 levels within like little sub levels, it keeps it tidy and in order.
So if I want to create a map here and have it be a child of map 001, I'm going to, in the case of our Mac here, we're going to double click on our trackpad. Alternatively, you could left click. We're going to go to our new option right here. It's going to give us a bunch of options about what we want to call our map and what the tile set's going to be. We're going to keep it in the dungeon for right now.
This is familiar to the first overworld we get of the tutorial 2, and we can change the width and size as always.
Indeed. We're going to hit OK. We're going to see a new map is created, blank, right underneath it. Now you see here the child-parent relationship has this little thing right here, which allows you to close everything underneath it. This can allow you to work very quickly and efficiently within the hierarchy if you want to. For right now, we're just going to have a second map, and we're just going to fill it with some dark tile. I'm going to go ahead and grab some tile right here. Go to our paintbrush option, and just fill the entire room. Done. We're going to go back to our first map. Now, how exactly do we get from this map to the other map? So what we're going to do here is we're going to create an event. So let's say over here, I'm going to create a little pathway, just so it's clear that you can go this way. And then I'm going to switch from our map version right here. We're going to switch over to the alternate editing mode, which is our event mode.
It's important because one is creative and one is completely scripted or a code part. So both of them do not intermingle, so you can't put tiles down if you wanted to while you're doing this mode, and vice versa for codes. It's just the way the platforming is.
You can see the visual change between the two. You can see here our player starting position is relatively grayed out. There's no squares or anything. While in the event mode, there's a clear and obvious grid pattern, and our player is highlighted. That's because the player creation itself is an event.
It's a little hard to see the grid pattern with its cobblestone, but there is some checks and marks. You can see a line here with the tile floor in between the little brown. It creates a grid. You'll be able to distinguish later on.
Now, basically what this means is that every time a player moves, he's moving along the grid pattern. The events themselves are placed upon these grids. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to either left-click or double-click on the trackpad, and it's going to give us an option to create an event. We're going to hit a new event, and it'll bring up the event option. You can name your event.
Let's say going for now.
You can have a variety of conditions, which we'll get to in a later video. We're going to ignore this autonomous movement and whatnot.
You can ignore all of this. This does not depend on movement to room at all.
Most of these are having to do with NPCs. For right now, we're going to switch our priority from below the characters to same level as characters.
This can be particularly frustrating if you don't realize this is not set to same as character or above as character. Because in a lot of places, if a thing is below a character and you want to touch it, you can't. Unless it is literally the same level as the character itself. It's just a weird way of how it interacts, or if you want to hide an event until you trigger it later.
The best way to think about it is below characters is the floor, same as characters is something to be blocking, and above characters is the ceiling. We also then want to switch the trigger from action button to player touch. Action button means you have to click on it. If you wanted to, say, open a door or open a chest, you have to have the player click on that thing. In this case, we want them to teleport from room to room, so we have them simply touch the event. What we're going to do now is go to our contents. We're going to double click on this. That's going to bring up a variety of options of what the event actually does. We'll go through a lot of these later in the tutorials, but for now we want something simple. On page 2, we go to Transfer Player. It'll bring up this little window, and you can pick the destination where it transfers to. So we're going to click on this direct destination.
It always starts with the first map you're going to. So it would be map 1, which we were currently starting the event.
Here's our player right here.
We want to make sure we want to leave towards that tan tile, so to the next room.
So we're going to select map 2, and we're going to select some point in space, let's say right here.
Right at the corner, at the base, as if we're entering in.
You can see here it's almost exactly mirrored to the other map. We're going to hit OK, hit OK again, and then hit OK to finish our event. Now we have an event that will teleport the player from this map to the other map.
But it's only a one-way. You have to duplicate this process if you want to go back and forth, and we'll show you in a second.
So we're going to select map 2 over here. We're going to click over here, and we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We're going to go from below to same. We're going to go from action to player touch. We're going to go into our contents and double-click, transfer player. We're going to go from the map here, where we are, always starts in the corner up here. I'm going to go back, and you can see our event is placed right here. Now,
we'll put it on top of the event and see what happens.
Now, currently, this is a big no-no, and you're going to see exactly why. So I'm going to play test the map real quick, save my changes.
This is very frustrating if you didn't know what to do, and you thought you broke your game by playtesting it without just going into a room. Trust me.
So I'm going to run over here, I'm going to touch our event, and we're going to be right over here. And then we're going to touch the event again and end up over here. And here we are. Okay. Well, that's the events. Normally, and we're not sure exactly why this didn't bug out, but for normal games, what would happen is you'd have an infinite teleportation from those two spots back and forth. Now in this case, for some reason, the game decided not to glitch, which is very strange. However, normally you do not want to actually place the teleportation spot exactly where the other teleportation is. Example here, we go back into the transfer player just by double-clicking it. Sorry, by clicking on it with the left click and hitting edit. We want to actually have the destination not be directly on the other teleportation event, but instead right in front of it. That will prevent you from having any kind of glitch or error. Fortunately, we didn't have it this time, but it is possible to have that happen. And it can be very frustrating when you have a very long running game and then, whoops, suddenly your players are stuck in an infinite loop transferring back and forth. You see here I'm doing the exact same thing for the other one, where I'm putting it just in front of it. That way the player does not end up getting stuck in an infinite loop and becoming frustrated and give up on your game.
And you don't have to delete the entire event. You can actually just move it back and forth if you build it up and have a whole bunch of code or different stuff. Like a chain reaction things, you don't have to delete it and start over. You just move it from side to side, as you can see what we did that there.
It's also possible to actually physically pick up and move events by simply holding down the right mouse button. You can see how this little white cube is around it, and the event can actually be moved physically. So if you decide, oh, I do want them to teleport there, but I don't want that to be the teleport back spot, I want to actually move it down a little bit, you can do that too. Well, I hope you enjoyed our tutorial, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we're going to cover a little more with the events and how you can, go into more depth with how to code it, what types of events, how to enter or to click on certain things. We'll do that next time, guys.
Okay, well, see you then.
Bye.